Welcome, 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 welcome. We're back. Part 2 of our Jim Thorpe coverage on Wait,
What?
Sports. See, my Wait, What Sports was very understated this time.
And Eli did not sound like
Eeyore
this time either. Yeah.
Yes,
Probably because we had cracking up so
I was
much.
going to say, I think we need to start getting in the practice of before the first show that we record every day.
Yeah.
We just make Eli laugh until he's about to pass out on the floor.
Or until he gets him and leaves the room, whichever comes first.
Well, he did get up and leave the room before
That's
the
true, and
first
he
one.
still sounded like Eeyore. So yeah, we just got to make you laugh till you almost pee. That's easy. Give us 5 minutes.
Our randomness, we'll get to him.
Yes.
Anyways.
Right.
Jim Thorpe.
Part 2. Part dos.
2. So we left you with a cliffhanger last time.
Wait a minute. Did you guys introduce yourselves?
I don't think we did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't think we did this time because we were just so excited about Jim Thorpe and the cliffhanger.
All right, well,
Yeah.
It's a cliffhanger, Eli.
Okay,
How
well,
can we-
you do
Nobody
the
wants the
honors.
recap of the before the cliffhanger continues. They just want you to get to the story. That's why everybody skips it. Okay, we'll do it though.
Anyways, so I'm Amy.
I'm Gina.
Dr. Robinson.
That's the only reason why he was concerned. He wanted to say Dr.
Right,
Robinson.
that's all. He wouldn't have cared if we don't do the introductions at that point. Didn't even need to do the show name as long as we got to say Dr. Robinson.
That's right.
Turn your mic off.
Will do.
Actually, no, because I need to ask him a question when we finish with the story.
She gave you the all clear.
So we ended on the cliffhanger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jim shows up on the football field and says, "Hey, Pop, I want to play." Pop's like, "No, you're crazy, Jim. Football is not a sport for runners. Not, when you are my prodigy on my track team.
You're
like
my
literally,
everything.
There's nobody else, right?" And Jim refuses to take no as an answer.
Which is typical of him as you go through this story.
He's a very stubborn man. Okay. So he shows up 2-3 days in a row. And finally, Pop's assistant is like, he's not going away. We should just send him out there with a ball and make him tackling practice.
Right, and let him see that he doesn't want to play this sport.
Because by the time Jim was playing, it was no longer all 50 guys on the field at once. They did have an offense and a defense. And I believe it was limited to 12, but it may have been 18 guys on the field at once.
Which is still significantly less than 50.
Yes. So basically, Pop was like, okay, we'll let the guys have tackling practice. The other thing to know about this that's really important, without getting too far into the history of football, is that at this point in time in football, the forward pass was illegal.
Just nuts to me because that's all you hear about anymore.
Your quarterback did not throw a ball. Your quarterback passed the ball or tossed the ball behind him to running backs and other players.
So that's crazy. So field sight wasn't important. Having a strong arm wasn't important.
Nope.
All the things that I know of a quarterback having to
So
be.
that ground and pound game that the Cleveland Browns and the AFC North were known for
Is exactly how it was played.
exactly how football was played.
So that's, we talk about fundamental basketball, that was fundamental football.
Yes.
Ah.
And so they had, Jim take the ball. And he was like, "Jim, just get out there and run. You're just going to run the ball. Run as far as you can, as fast as you can." And then he looked at his defense players and he was like, "Okay, guys, Jim's got the ball. Teach him why he doesn't want to be on the football team. Teach him why."
I'm just sit back for this part.
Jim ran from the 1-yard line. By the way, football fields were 110 yards at that point in time. Ran 98 miles past every tackler. Got to the end of the field. Touched the ball down to the end of the field because that's how you got a touchdown back then.
Right.
You literally had to put the ball down in the end zone. That's a rule in rugby still. Came back up to Pop and said, "How was that?" And Pop was like, "Well, that was impressive, but the guys weren't ready for you. They didn't realize how fast you could run."
That's the laziest excuse ever.
Go out there and do it again. Now, Jim had just run 100 yards, right?
I would die after the first one.
Like, not even 5 minutes later, he's running the play again, right? And this time, Pop tells the guys, don't be careful with him. Literally murder him. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Not literally, but you know.
Like, knock him...
Football coach language, murder this dude.
Knock him on his butt.
Okay? Jim not only ran past several tacklers, but he broke 3 to 4 tackles.
Mm-hmm.
He pushed off guys, and he made it all the way to the end zone again.
Alien.
Now, Eli, as a lineman,
Yes.
how bad are your feelings hurt?
They're shattered.
Did we mention that he was in street clothes when he did this?
Yeah, he wasn't even allowed
like,
he wasn't even allowed to suit up.
He was in his normal, like, everyday walking around clothes, normal shoes, didn't come from track practice running or no. He was just walking by and was like, let me hurt these guys' feelings real quick. Then the quote is, he walked over to Pop Warner and was like, nobody's going to tackle Jim, and flipped the ball at him and just strolled off into the sunset. Like, I'm like, see, this is why he is the original GOAT. Who does that?
Yeah. As a defense lineman,
Depressed
and our egos are shattered.
So are you sitting there like looking at Coach like we have to have this guy on our team?
Yes.
you put your pride aside and be like, why isn't he playing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's pretty much what happened. Like,
So what if the Browns had somebody just walked on like that?
He would be in pads and he'll be signed into a contract literally the next day. Not even the next day. Probably a few hours later.
to me, what this reminds me of is Willie Mays Hayes from
Yes.
Major League.
Yes, exactly right.
Where he wakes up in the parking lot and he realizes they're doing training. He runs in and catches the ball in his splits. And yeah, that's what this reminds me of.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, you know, he was just a walk-on that just did.
Some random guy.
So Pop was like, okay, we gotta, I can't. Yeah. I can't deny this.
I guess you're playing football now. And track still.
So, in 1911, he was a running back, a defensive back, the place kicker, and the punter.
It's like track all over again. He's like everything.
Yeah. In the team's 18-15 upset of Harvard, he scored all of the team's 4 field goals. Yeah.
It only gets better from there. Like, you know how like you expect somebody to hit like their stride and they just fall down? Yeah, no, that doesn't happen for him. Not for a really long time.
Yeah. So in 1912, he scored 25 touchdowns and 198 points during the season. Now, back then, the points for football was 4 points for a touchdown.
Okay.
So, if you do the math and whatever, yeah, you know. So, he did things that nobody else did.
Ever done.
The Big Four, as they were known at the time, was Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and Rutgers.
Rutgers, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, they annihilated them very shortly. So
In short order, as they say.
in 1912, they also played the West Point Army team. So they played Army.
Mm-hmm.
In that game, he had a 92-yard touchdown, but was unfortunately, as Browns fans know this pain because we've had it happen to us several times.
It's not funny, but it's funny.
Poor Josh Cribbs. 92-yard touchdown nullified by a teammate's penalty.
Go figure.
Although there is some question about whether that was an actual penalty or not, because again, he's playing for the Carlisle Indian Industrial School.
Always got to question that stuff.
Question mark. But the future president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, was playing on the Army team.
Yes, he played against the future president. Wait till you hear what the president said about him, though. Continue.
Well, do you...
Oh, yes, can I? Okay, so even though it got nullified, he turned around on the next play and ran 97 yards. He beat his own run on the previous play, scored the touchdown. Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "Here and there are some people who are supremely endowed. My memory goes back to Jim Thorpe. He never practiced a day in his life and could do anything better than any other football player I ever saw."
And that was in a speech he gave in 1961.
And he played this game in 1912, which means that man was so good. He stuck in, he said every once in a while, like he never stopped thinking about how good of an athlete Jim Thorpe was. And when you get a hurting put on you twice in a row, from one end of the field to the other practically, how can you ever forget that? And he was probably the one he got, he probably knocked him over. That's why he remembers so well.
So Thorpe was an All-American in 1908. Third team All-American in 1908, but a first team in 1911 and 1912. He did not compete in track and field in 1910 and 1911. But of course, then in 1912, he started training for the Olympics, and he confined his efforts to jumps, hurdles, shot puts, and added pole vaulting, javelin and discus, hammer, and the 56-pound weight.
So he just adding on stuff. Mind you, he went 2 years and didn't do anything track and field related and strictly played football, which the only thing that's similar is running.
Yeah. Well, I mean hurdles, but you know.
Right.
Yeah, so he qualified in the trials that were held in New York City. And then, as we talked about previously, went to Stockholm for the Olympics. Mm-hmm. Now, because his gold medal had been nullified, he's not on the lists of any of the Olympic records. I'm certain that he will be eventually reinstated. They'll update it, but they have not yet because that was just only like 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where these fall and how long these records would have lasted had he, been there. But according to his obituary in the New York Times, he ran the 100-yard dash in 10 seconds flat.
Wait.
The 220 in 21.8 seconds.
Wait.
The 440 in 51.8 seconds.
Wait.
The 800 in 1 minute and 57.
It only gets better.
The mile in 4 minutes and 35 seconds. 120-yard high hurdles in 15 seconds. And the 220-yard low hurdles in 24. He could long jump 23 feet, 6 inches. And high jump 6 feet, 5 inches. Now, one thing to remember about the high jump. This is before the flop.
Yeah. So wait, you just had to land on your feet?
So high jump before the Fosbury flop.
Yeah.
Where, now high jumpers run up and they jump and they go over backwards and upside down.
Yeah.
My dad competed in high jumps before the flop. And you literally had to just jump up and over the bar.
And wait, you landed on your feet?
No, you usually were like in a tumble. So you would do like a somersault as you landed.
What? That's even more incredible. So he's a gymnast as well. Okay.
Right. So you would jump up and over, and you would curve your body over, and you would put your hands out above your head as you went to land on the pads. Now, this is how my dad explained it that's how he did it in the 60s. And you would kind of crunch into a somersault as you landed.
That is nice.
So, yeah.
And that's the 60s. So who knows if that was more complicated then?
Who knows how they actually did it way back when.
You're coming from 6 feet in the air.
6 feet in the air. Now, Jim Thorpe did stand 6 foot something. So, like 6'1". But yeah. To be able to jump over a bar that was 6 feet and 5 inches off the ground when you could not
just
leap and turn.
Exactly.
I mean, I know the record now is somewhere around 10 feet, but yeah. So he could pole vault 11 feet, shot put 47 feet and 9 inches, throw the javelin 163 feet, and throw the discus 136 feet.
So, okay, of those statistics, what blew your mind? I mean, all of them seem to have made you go, what? But what's the one that stuck out to you the most?
Well, first off, I want to say this. For those people who don't know what the discus is.
Yes.
Because I've talked to some people that don't. The discus is basically a stone or metal frisbee. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the discus. Shot put, it's believed to have actually started with actual cannonball shot.
I can see that.
And you hold the cannonball at your shoulder and you turn a circle, 3 circles, and then push the shot as far as you can to put it out in the middle of the yard. So you're basically acting as a cannon.
That's crazy. And he could do that.
And of course the javelin is a spear.
He could do that for 47 feet. Mm-hmm. The power that you have to generate in this little area from your shoulder to the length of your arm.
Yeah, I mean, today's records are higher.
Of course.
But yeah.
But we're talking about early 1900s era.
So I was going to say, about every statistic, Eli was sitting over there going, what the hell? What? So which one was the one?
I would say the mile. 4 minutes?
4 minutes and 35 seconds.
That's crazy.
I think the one that got me was when he could do the 100-yard dash in 10 seconds.
Yeah, that too.
So usually people are either short distance or long distance runners. Right. Usually if you're great in the 100-yard dash, like Usain Bolt, he does it in 6.5 seconds.
Right.
You cannot also then be great at the mile.
It's your body isn't set up to do both.
Right. Usually your body is set up with either fast twitch or slow twitch muscles. Right. Not to get too much into anatomy.
But just know, your body usually does one or the other really well.
But body has more of one or the other. And depending on what kind you have more of, means that you are either a really great endurance runner or you are really good at short distances.
Right.
This man seemed to be pretty good at both.
I mean, he was a mishmash of Usain Bolt. What's the comparison I made? He was the Michael Phelps before Michael Phelps was Michael Phelps. Just doing
right, because Michael Phelps
stuff.
Does the 100 meter.
Yeah.
And he does the 1500 meter.
Exactly. He was Michael Phelps before Michael Phelps was Michael Phelps. It's just nuts to me.
So, yeah.
And I repeat, he had not competed in these things before. It was just smashing it.
Yeah, he just could do it. He had the ability, and as, President Eisenhower had said, he just seemed to just not even have to practice a day in his life.
Right. Can you imagine just you've been if you're at the Olympics, how everybody goes out there and practices and goes through their paces. He probably just walked out there. It was I'm going to do a couple of test ones just to see. And then he just goes sit and chill. And then they call him up and he just flop. And then he just goes back and sits back like nothing ever happened. I would never want to compete after that. How do I follow that act? If he's the first person up, how do you go out there and be I can do better than that? And nobody's ever done it that well. How do you not psych yourself out to just be I quit. What's the point?
Okay, so now, once we get past his Olympics, we get back into some of the other stuff. Mm-hmm. So, as we talked about before, the controversy. He was paid as little as $2 per game to play baseball in 1910. Thing is that college players regularly spent their summers playing professional ball in order to earn money for college. Mm-hmm. public did not seem to care that Jim played. But the IOC and the amateur athletic clubs all cared.
It's not fair.
Basically, Jim didn't know not to use his real name when he signed his baseball contracts.
And that's so crazy. Like, he's just doing what he thinks he's supposed to do. Like, I'm playing on the team. Why would they not need to know my real name? And nobody told him.
It's back in the time before Social Security, so it's not like you had an identifying card from the U.S. government that you had to have in order to work.
Right.
So
because he didn't know how to cheat.
Because he didn't know not to use his real name, he got in trouble.
He didn't know how to cheat the system. He was being honest.
Yeah, so...
Worst example of crime does pay ever.
As we talked about, this man played every sport. So... Gee, do you still have the timeline written down in your notebook from last week?
I do.
Because
yes, ma'am.
It was crazy, the overlap.
Yeah, very much so. So I'm going to start from the Olympics.
I'm watching Eli's response to this as well.
Yeah. I feel like we should be recording it. In fact, hold on. Let me...
You're going to video?
I'm going to video his response. Okay. So he played... Obviously, he was in the 1912 Olympics. And from 1913, actually, to 1928, he played football professionally. He played baseball from 1915 to 1920. Now, let me reread that statistic. He played football from 1913 to 1928 and played baseball from 1915 to 20. He played 2 sports. Then he played basketball professionally for a year from 1927 to 1928.
What?
So literally all 3 of his major league stints in some way overlapped each other.
Plus the hockey.
Plus the hockey. I forgot about it. Yeah, he almost played hockey in 1913. Right after, now mind you, he just smashed the Olympics at this point. Completely destroyed the Olympics. Won 2 gold medals. I'm going to say he won 2 medals because he did. Mm-hmm. And then he just rolls over and is like, I'm thinking about going to play hockey. Let's give baseball a shot. I still love football, so I'm going to play. Like, where did he find time to play all these sports over time, like, right, one after the other? Like, some of these seasons overlap, I would imagine, at this point in time, too. So what coach was like, yeah, go play football. You're my star. Oh, well, he wasn't all that great in baseball. We'll talk about that. But even still, like, yeah, I trust you won't get hurt in this, like, very violent sport of football.
Yeah, because I was going to get to that. I was wondering what his stats was in baseball.
They talk a little bit about that. So, let's see. I got it. I wrote that down. Stand by. So, baseball, he was a decent player. It was nothing like his football accomplishments or his baseball accomplishments.
Okay, all right.
So, Thorpe played with the Giants baseball club in 1913.
Yes.
And played with them as an outfielder sporadically for 3 seasons. After playing in the minor leagues with the Milwaukee Brewers, back when the Brewers were a minor league team.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Then he went to the Reds. And then he went to Boston. Boston Braves at the time.
And the double no-hitter between Fred Toney of the Reds and Hippo Vaughn of the Chicago Cubs. So this is a game in 1917 when both the Reds and the Cubs have a no-hitter going in the same game. Thorpe drove in the winning and only run in the 10th inning.
That's insane.
Out of nowhere. Just like, this game's going to go on forever. He was just like, let's time to end this.
What's funny to me is the way they word things here. Like, late in the season, he was then sold back to the Giants. Yeah, they didn't trade. They just sold players.
I hate the fact that they phrase it that way, but it's probably really how it works.
Yeah, they didn't trade. They just sold. So, yeah. I mean,
statistically...
in his career, he amassed 91 runs.
Yeah.
82 runs batted in. Had a .252 batting average... in over 289 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's decent.
He's decent.
Yeah, he wasn't terrible.
Oh, he once played for the Toledo Mud Hens.
Oh, I don't know that.
Cool.
Wow.
I mean, I knew he played for the Canton Bulldogs, so it doesn't make, that much of a... It's
He
not that much of a
stayed in
thing.
this area.
Yeah. He was around the Cleveland and Canton area for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually trying to find the information about his ballroom dancing championship.
Oh, that he won in college?
Yeah. But I couldn't find it. I was like, oh, what year was that?
It was 19. I wrote it down. Hold on. He won a ballroom championship in college. Won the top prize, and that was in 19... When did he win that bad boy? Right before he went to the Olympics. 1912. No, same year, 1912. So he won the Olympics. He won ball dancing. How? How are you such a smooth... I mean, I guess it makes sense he's a smooth operator on the dance floor if he can run like that.
Look.
He got them feet, so I can't be mad.
So, yeah, he did a lot of stuff. Now, he was one of the people to work on founding the American Professional Football Association.
Do you know what it later became?
Not the NFL. Really?
The NFL. He was the first
So,
president.
you know how we have the American League and the National, there's, and that's how we have the Super Bowls, the two
Right.
Competing sides. So, the National Football League started in the 1920s, and the AFL then started later. But he was their first president while still playing
With the Canton
with
Bulldogs.
the Canton Bulldogs.
Wow.
So, like, again, the overlap. Like, you're the president of the actual association, and you're still a player.
And a coach.
Oh, I forgot about the fact that he was a coach at that point, too.
He was a player coach.
I forgot all about that.
Then
there's so many statistics I can't keep up.
Then he started his own team, the Orang Indians in LaRue, Ohio, an all Native American team.
Wow.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Now, his basketball career isn't really known as far as, first of all, they didn't even know he played basketball until 2005. Like, they found it in, like, a book of records or whatever it was that showed his name. And then...
No, they found a ticket.
Oh, was it a ticket? A ticket. They didn't even know he played professional basketball.
So, yeah. In 1926, he was the main feature of the world-famous Indians of LaRue traveling basketball team.
Which was an all-Native American basketball team.
Jim Thorpe's world-famous Indians barnstormed for at least 2 years in multiple states. Yeah.
I like how they say main feature instead of main attraction, because the connotations of one of which we know. And I will say, kind of going, I think it's the baseball aspect going back to it. He was touted as this, like, you might as well say, side attraction. This amazing Native American player, come watch him. So that he was a cash grab.
Yeah. In fact, he actually said when he was playing with the Giants, his first couple of years, that when he was asked what position he played the bench outside, outside the ticket window. Mm-hmm. That basically he was there to sell tickets.
Yeah.
And
that
then
has to be a little bit of an ego blow too, to know, like, I'm a great athlete, but that's not why you wanted me, for real. On the very undercurrents of it all, I'm just enough to make people go, let's go see this amazing, unbelievable Native American Indian at the time for them.
Right. Well, and there's a theme with a lot of the things that he played as well, because that very brief hockey career.
Yeah.
He was actually in talks to play for the Tecumseh League, and I can never say his name right. Tecumseh Hockey Club in Toronto. Now, it's a name I know. I'm not certain if it's a name both of you know. Tecumseh?
No.
He's actually a very famous Native American from Ohio.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, he was a chief.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So, you can see a theme running through
Very
a lot of the
much
things
so.
that he did. He was still trying to stay tied to his roots, I believe.
I give him all credit for that. I mean, even just starting like an all Native American football team, an all Native American basketball team. Like he never was like, I'm moved beyond my people. I don't need to like recognize that side of myself anymore. Like he was always culturally aware, which is something you can't say for a lot of athletes anymore.
So, on his personal life, he was married 3 times.
Yes.
Had a total of 8 children. His first marriage was to a young lady he met at Carlisle. And they moved back into a house near his family's land in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And she filed for divorce in 1925, claiming desertion. Well, she was living in Oklahoma. He was playing in Canton.
So why is he deserting you? I'm confused.
Well, desertion just means that he never came home.
Oh, it's that vague.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, desertion means he's never here to help me take care of the kids. He's never here to help me do anything. But if he never came home in the off season,
Oh, well, I guess.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But then that goes into a whole conversation about how long. Anyway, yeah, I guess. I mean, if she really felt like she had no support, she was like, well, if I'm doing it by myself anyway, why be married to you?
right? Well, I mean, we don't know all the other stuff and whatever
Right,
because
right.
in 1926 he married his second wife.
He wasted no time.
She was working for the manager of the baseball team for which he was playing at the time.
That's not a conflict of interest.
They had 4 sons.
Waste no time.
They divorced in 1941. And in 45, he married his 3rd and final wife.
Wow.
She was with him when he died of a triple heart attack.
Jeez. You know what? It's really scary to think somebody so athletically inclined can die from a triple heart attack.
And unfortunately, his family is still fighting to get his body back.
That part really depressed me.
What?
Yeah.
Did you see his reaction?
Yeah. That
Yes.
was my reaction when she said that. I was like, come again? So it's not like they don't want him. They don't
So
care that his body's not with them. They want it
He
back.
passed away in California,
Yeah.
and they were supposed to receive his body at his ancestral lands.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, they did. He came back home. They had a big, memorial for him.
Mm-hmm.
But while they were trying to get the money to actually entomb him, his 3rd wife sold his body to a town in Pennsylvania that renamed themselves Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania.
Yes,
What?
she sold his remains from underneath his actual
How is
family.
that even possible?
Listen, that's a whole conversation. We literally spent probably a good half an hour just talking about the legality of being able to sell a person's remains. It's not like I said, it's not like the family doesn't want him back. It's not like, like she made money off of selling a dead body that the family wanted and that he wanted to be
That's
buried
like
on his ancestral line.
That's so disrespectful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And mind you, the kicker of it is the city that bought him, he has no ties to.
And
What?
they renamed themselves Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania.
But he's never been there. No affiliation with this town.
Nope.
It was a cash grab for that town.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Oh, yeah, pretty much.
And it's still an ongoing legal battle to get, because then we went into the whole conversation. We won't go too far into it, but how do you, now that his body is buried there, is it seen as a memorial or is it seen as a museum? Because everything in that city is based around Jim Thorpe. So
They've been trying to get him back under the Native American Repatriation Acts, which is a law that allows Native Americans to sue museums to get the bones of their ancestors back. So much like there's all this controversy about all these art museums with art that was stolen from third world nations,
Right.
stolen from antiquity. So like, The fact that the entire Temple of Luxor is actually in Britain.
Yes.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it happened to Greece as well. I mean, there's lots of Greek artifacts around the world that walked away from their native land. It's the same way I talk about books that have disappeared from the library without being checked out. They grew legs and walked away. When your ancestor, millions of years old possibly,
right.
I mean, that's like some of the debate now. A lot of the ones that they could prove were not that old, that they actually could say this belonged to this particular tribe,
right,
were repatriated very quickly. But the ones they have controversies about now are like, well, this set of bones is like 3 million years old.
So how do we
know which
right.
tribe it belongs to? When a museum has a set of bones that a tribe is claiming because that set of bones came from a known tribal area and is of a specific age, to be known that the tribe lived in that area
right.
at the time that the bones would have been buried, they can sue for repatriation, meaning that they get the bones back to be buried on their current tribal grounds.
Right.
So that the bones of their ancestors aren't sitting in a museum and therefore, by their beliefs, no longer at rest.
Right.
They his kids tried to get his body back by suing with the Repatriation Act, and one judge agreed with them that basically they should have their father's body back, that the memorial that was built around Thorpe's body and Thorpe's casket could in fact be seen as a museum.
Mm-hmm.
But the city, of course, countered and took it to an appeal, and the appeals court found that the memorial and the city does not fit the definition of an incorporated museum as set forth in the act, because they are a city and not technically an incorporated museum. So that means like the Cleveland Museum of Natural History is an incorporated museum.
Right. It's recognized as a museum.
Right. That therefore they could not get their father's body back that way. And it's like, just let these poor kids bury their dad.
At the end of the day. Like, they want to put him where he wants to. And clearly, if you look at the man's life and his history, he has always stayed tied to his roots. So why would that not be his final wish as well, to go back to his native lands and be buried there? But because the city doesn't want to lose, and it's not like the city will lose out on cash. Like, you can give the body back and never say a word and still keep claiming that he's there. Just give the man's family that peace of mind so that they can move on with their lives. And my fear, now that we think about it and talk about it, is when his kids die, are their kids going to care enough to be like, we got to keep the fight up to get great-grandpa back at this point?
I mean,
it's just another example of how
the thing is that him getting his medals back and Bright Path doing all that work,
right,
laid the ground for people like you and me to find out about this stuff,
right,
and put the word out there. Because how wrong is it for you to name your city after a gentleman whose body you bought?
Exactly.
And it's not like that happened in the 1930s.
No.
It happened in the 50s.
Now, mind you, my mom was born in 57.
It actually happened the year my dad was born.
So we're not that far removed from the fact that you could buy a body and build a whole city just to make money. How messed up is that?
Basically to create a tourist attraction for the area.
Exactly. That, again, has no affiliation with this man whatsoever, other than you are both in the state of Pennsylvania.
I mean, from what I could tell, and I'm going to do a quick search, because from what I could tell, it wasn't really even anywhere near the Carlisle school.
But, and I think the saddest part is, that's how, like, his legacy has been restored as an Olympic athlete. And you can't take away any of his other accomplishments. But that's how his story concludes, is he was bought and sold for a cash grab. Despite his amazing accomplishments, all the records he set, all the barriers he broke, that's his final story. That's the end of his story right there. I mean, well, I guess it's a to be continued. But as of right now, that's how his story concludes. And I think it's really sad that most of us have no idea. Again, we have no idea who this man is. I've never heard of Jim Thorpe.
Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania is 116 miles. Let me change this to car because I had it on bike. So via the freeway, it's 106 miles. Down I-81 to the Carlisle Indian Boarding School Cemetery.
Wow. Again, nothing close to being affiliated with that.
106 miles.
Now imagine that was if it was before freeways. How much longer that would take you.
Right, well, that's why I said, like, I accidentally had it on biking, and it was 116 miles by bike.
That don't make no sense.
And, mountains.
I wish somebody would tell me that I can't have my mom back to rest her the way she would want to be rested. I would lose my mind. I would lose it.
So, Mr. Eli, what minute count are we at?
About 41 minutes.
Oh, see, we stayed on topic. I'm so proud of us. Pat on the back.
So, we want to let you guys know some of the topics that we do plan on going over in the next couple of weeks. We are looking at getting international.
We're expanding your horizons along with our own.
So, we are going to explore cricket.
I'm busting out the British accent. I'm warning you in advance, Eli.
Cheerio.
We're going to play some cricket. Yes, we are.
Pip, pip, cheerio, cheerio.
Yes,
it's worth it just to get the head shake from Eli.
We will be participating in some tomfoolery. I just want you to know. Shenanigans. Scalawaggery.
We're also looking at rugby, which has gained in popularity over the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, because you know what? It's so funny. If we both know somebody who ironically played on the same rugby team here in Northeast Ohio. And I keep seeing more and more people, like, sharing their videos and commenting on it and talking about the rugby teams that they're on. And it's kind of like soccer for me. Rugby is. Like, it's a sport that you know is there, and it's popular, but it's still, like, off the mainstream radar to a great degree.
So rugby to me is like Quidditch.
Eli has no idea what that is.
Quidditch? You don't know what
you
Quidditch
talking to the
is,
wrong.
Eli?
You talking to the wrong one. The wrong one.
There's actually an International Quidditch Association.
That would be a fun game to play.
They're actually working on changing their name because they don't want to be associated with J.K. Rowling anymore because of her comments on different things.
Yeah, that's fair.
But to me, it's kind of like that, where it's like it's there. Mm-hmm. You know people play it.
Yeah.
But there's no actual association to it.
Exactly.
As far as you know. You're like, it's just pickup games, right?
Exactly. You just go to a field and somebody throws the ball out there and you go for what you know. Like it's like intramural leagues.
Right. It seems a very intramural to us. Though if you're really into it, I know that there actually are leagues and things because I know somebody who was part of a team a few years after he left the team. They wound up going to Australia for the world champion or for the world finals.
Really?
In rugby. Wow. But there are different forms of rugby, just like there are different forms of cricket. Cricket is also another thing where like you don't see it much here, but I just found out that there's a American Cricket Association.
There's an American Cricket Association. And I will say cricket again is one of those sports where you're like rich people play that sport. That's why most of us don't know what it is. Like you're not going to go to like the local public school. I feel like no matter where you live, for the most part,
in the rest of the world.
I mean, in America,
yeah.
Even
in America, not even rich people play it in America. It's not even like that's why I was like, what the hell? There's a cricket league.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
But
I just assume all the rich people everywhere do the same stuff.
It's not like polo, where there's, polo leagues all over the place.
Right.
But no, and in the rest of the world, like even in the slums of India, they're playing cricket because it's much easier to play on the street.
I can see that because of what it is.
It's much easier to play than baseball as far as street ball goes.
Because that's why when we were researching, we would try to find sports movies. There were so many like Indian cricket movies. I was like, what is going on, Netflix? And they were like Netflix originals. I was like, man, this really is big in India because this is the only country that has a movie about cricket.
It is actually huge. And like I said, I find out random things by watching like Antiques Roadshow and stuff. And
those shows are great for stuff like that.
There's a new one on PBS Passport called Antiques Road Trip. But anyways, like one of the artifacts that they found was this painting of a cricket pitch in India with the Indian cricket team from like 1900.
What?
So yeah,
it goes back that far.
Oh,
that's gonna be a good show.
It's older than baseball.
Guys, you have to listen to the show. It's gonna be so good.
But anyways,
about to blow some minds. We're about to make Dr. Robinson go, what? Like we did this show. And you thought we would never get you.
Admit it, Eli.
No.
That's okay. We know his reactions. I got a couple of them. That's why I recorded you. So we have actual proof. And no, you can't have my phone. I'm about to change my lock screen so you can't go and delete nothing. But on that note, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter show.
I think we're right on time.
I think so. Last minute thoughts, feelings, emotions about Jim Thorpe. Eli, what'd you think about the man, the myth, the legend?
Like I said, he's like a renaissance man of sports.
Are you ready to recognize him as the original GOAT?
No, not yet.
On that note, I'm going to keep my commentary to myself. I'm Gina.
I'm Amy.
I'm Dr. Robinson.
We thank you guys for joining us. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or our Gmail, and let us know what you think of Jim Thorpe, the original GOAT. Have a good day, humans.